Thunderobot is one of these brands that I've never heard of until recently, but they already managed to win me over with the G50S. So I was quite interested in what else they have to offer. This is where the G45 comes in. It comes in two models, a more Switch-centric and a PC-centric one. Today I have the PC model in a more brown-centric color scheme, but there's also a red one. Looking at this, you might remember another controller I reviewed. It looks similar to the INE Athena, but is it the same, better or worse? Well, that is what I'm here to find out. My first impression started out really well. The plastic they use feels great, and I'm a fan of the overall shape. It reminds me a little bit of the PS4, but slightly better, and I'm all for it. Then I got to the buttons, and they all are micro switches, not a single rubber dome. But despite that, you still have a satisfying travel distance. While I am on the face buttons though, it looks like the Y and A are slightly off center. Also, it looks like the letters are printed on, so I can see them rub off with due time. But this is one of the only negative things I noticed at this point. I then turned it on and got blinded instantly. I myself am not a big proponent of light effects already, but these rings are just so bright that I notice them out of the corner of my eyes. Thankfully, you can turn it down. Overall, it delivered a great first impression, and I was ready to get all the other tests on the way. But before that, what do you get in the box and what are the advertised specs? In the box, you get the controller itself, a manual, a USB-A to C cable, and a very generic looking dongle. However, despite being a generic dongle, they thankfully printed the name of the device it belongs to onto it, instead of just 2.4 GHz or nothing. It's a small thing, but I more than once had to go through a bag full of these just to find the correct one. So good job, Thunderbolt. Then the controller itself advertises the following specs: Hall effect joysticks and triggers, full mechanical buttons, enhanced D-pad design, which just means this concave shield style, cross-platform connectivity to PC, Switch, TV, mobile and cars, high polling rate with 500 Hz, turbo function, macro function, asymmetrical rumble, RGB lights, and a 500 mAh battery. Furthermore, the stick is detachable, but they don't include or sell any replacements or alternatives, which makes this a bit of a strange inclusion. A few things they didn't advertise is the fact that both sticks can be set to a 0 dead zone mode, can be changed to use square gates, and also the left stick can be swapped with the D-pad. It's nothing new, but it just feels strange that they left this out. Now getting to the hardware itself, it continues to be a bit of a treat. The controller weighs in at 200 grams flat, making it feel at its size more full and dense compared to the G50S. The required button force is also nothing to scoff at. The A, X and Y all came in at 150 grams, while B came in at a slightly lower 145 grams. The D-pad came in at 195 for up and down, 185 for left, and 205 grams for right. This might be because right seems to have a slightly longer travel distance for some reason. Start and select come in at 175 grams, and L3 and R3 come in at 180 and 160 grams respectively. Compared to others, this seems to be nice and consistent, but the overall force required is on the lower side. The sticks themselves are also pretty good. On the joystick tester, I managed to get a circle error rate of 1% for the left and 0.7 for the right stick. The same test on hardwaretester.com provided me with a rate of 0.1% for the left and 0.2 for the right. At first, I got a much worse value on the left stick though, as it was set to the square gate by default, so you might want to check that if you intend to get one yourself. Then the only thing left is the polling rate. With the dongle and Bluetooth, I got 250 Hz maximum and an average of 312 Hz. I'm not sure how that exactly is supposed to work, but I followed the program there. The average seems to be closer to controllers that had a maximum of 500 Hz than ones with 250 Hz. So based on that, I would almost assume that the advertised 500 Hz is the more accurate value here. When I switch over to the cable, I actually get a polling rate of 1000 Hz max and an average of 646.8 Hz. So based on that, I would say that the advertised polling rate is truthful. And now to the sound test. Thanks to the mechanical buttons, we get a nice and familiar sound that is overall pleasant to listen to. Also, the back buttons have a nice and full sound as well compared to many others that sound hollow. I do like the sound of the controller, with one big exception: the bumpers. I don't know what they did, but the springs they use are quite audible, and I honestly don't like it. Thankfully, I don't hear it as well when I hold the controller at a normal distance, but it does make me concerned for the quality of the springs used. From my time using it, I really can say that this controller is a blast to use. From the buttons to the sticks, it really just surprised me how premium it feels. This is however not for the entire controller. For some reason, the back buttons feel kinda mushy, and I don't even mean when you press them down, as they are stiff when they are bottomed out, but when you just apply a little bit of pressure to them, it feels like a hard rubber. It is kinda hard to explain, but it was something I did notice. None of the other buttons had this though, and they actually are great otherwise. I also want to just quickly mention the D-pad. It is a shield style, so diagonals are easier to hit, but its very distinct cross gives you some extra feedback to avoid that. I'm still no fan of the design, but this is a compromise that has worked well enough so far. When it comes to the macros, Thunderobot fails to mention anywhere how many steps the controller supports. From my testing, it seems to be 16 steps in total, and the start and select buttons are not able to be used. The accuracy of these 16 steps seems to also be pretty good in the first 2/3 or so. But that doesn't matter, since they goofed big time. When you use more than one button and don't interrupt it by manually pressing another button, it will repeat the sequence indefinitely. And no, I did not have turbo active. This has potential to be quite bad, since, as an example, swapping out a weapon in game could be the same as deleting a save from the main menu. All in all, I'm not a big fan of that. The controller comes with 3 light modes: Waterfall, where the controller slowly changes color from top to bottom; Breathing, where the same color gets dimmer and then brighter in an endless loop; and Static. For all 3, you can cycle through 4 levels of brightness, with one of them being off, and for the single color ones, you can cycle between a handful of colors. One thing to mention is that the G45 does support control via the Keylinker app, which I've shown before for the KS62. It seems to me that this is just a standard that these manufacturers can implement without having to make their own app. This is nice though, since it means you don't have to install hundreds of apps. As for the actual functionality, you can do pretty much the same that you can do on the controller itself, but with just a little bit more fine tuning, such as setting RGB values for the light, which allows you to do colors that aren't pre-programmed, such as purple, or set the breathing speed. It's a nice addition, but thankfully not needed at all. All in all, I can say that this controller is almost everything that the INA Athena should have been. The G45 PC Edition is a fantastic controller that currently is for me on par, if not even slightly better than the KS62. It depends a bit on what I'm playing, but man, has Thunderobot delivered so far with both this and the G50S. This is why it's such a shame that the PC Edition seems to be currently out of stock as of writing. The regular G45 seems to still be available though, and it seems to have the same features except it trades the polling rate for a gyro. If you get a chance to get one of these, then I don't think you will be disappointed, and I'm looking forward to more offerings from Thunderobot. Other than that, if you have any recommendations or other products you want me to check out, then let me know in the comments below.